Imagine you're living thousands of years ago. There are no hospitals, no pharmacies, no instruction manuals. You walk through a forest and discover a strange plant. You've never seen it before. You don't know if it's food. You don't know if it's medicine. And you definitely don't know if it's dangerous. Then someone throws part of the plant into a fire. Smoke rises. The smell is strange. Everyone watches. And eventually, someone has a bizarre idea. What if I breathe this? It sounds ridiculous, but someone, somewhere in human history, probably did something very similar. And that raises a fascinating question. Why did humans start deliberately inhaling smoke from plants? Was it curiosity? Medicine? Ritual? Or did humans simply discover something that changed the way their brain felt? To understand the answer, we have to go much further back than cigarettes, much further back than tobacco, back to a world where fire was technology and smoke was information. Before smoking, there was fire. Long before humans smoked anything, they learned something much more important: how to control fire. Fire changed everything. It provided warmth, light, protection, and most importantly, it allowed humans to transform plants, meat, and other materials. But fire also produced something impossible to ignore: smoke. Early humans would have seen smoke every single day. They would have watched it rise into the sky. They would have smelled burning wood. They would have noticed that different plants produced different smells. Some probably smelled terrible. Others smelled surprisingly pleasant. And eventually, humans began experimenting. They burned herbs, leaves, seeds, resins, wood. Different plants produced different effects. Some were used for food, some for medicine, some for ceremonies, and some simply because humans are incredibly curious animals. We don't just ask, "What does this do?" We ask, "What happens if I try it?" And that question has driven human history more than we probably realize. Here's where things get interesting. Humans weren't necessarily smoking tobacco thousands of years ago. In many ancient cultures, burning plants and inhaling their smoke was connected to rituals, medicine, ceremonies, and spiritual practices. Smoke itself became meaningful. Think about what smoke does. It rises, it disappears into the sky, it transforms something physical into something invisible. For ancient humans, this could have been incredibly powerful symbolism. A plant goes into the fire, and something mysterious emerges. Smoke. It could look like the plant's spirit was leaving its body. And this may help explain why smoke became connected to rituals in different cultures. People burned aromatic plants. They used smoke during ceremonies. They surrounded important events with it, and sometimes they deliberately inhaled it. But there was another reason humans may have experimented with smoke: the brain. Imagine discovering a plant that makes you feel different, maybe calmer, maybe more alert, maybe dizzy, maybe euphoric, maybe nothing happens at all. If you lived thousands of years ago, you had no chemistry textbook explaining what was happening. You only had experience. When I use this plant, something changes. And humans are very good at remembering experiences that feel unusual. This is where experimentation could become tradition. One person discovers something, they tell another. That person tries it, then another. Eventually, the behavior becomes part of a group's knowledge. And this is one of the most powerful features of human civilization. We don't just discover things individually. We copy each other. We improve discoveries. And then we pass them to the next generation. A strange experiment can become a ritual. A ritual can become a tradition. And a tradition can survive for centuries. Now we arrive at the plant most people associate with smoking: tobacco. Tobacco is native to the Americas. Indigenous peoples used tobacco in many different ways long before Europeans arrived. It wasn't simply a recreational habit. In different cultures, tobacco could be connected to ceremonies, medicine, social relationships, and spiritual practices. The plant contained something especially important: nicotine. And nicotine, when Europeans encountered tobacco in the Americas, they encountered something unfamiliar. Tobacco was eventually transported across the Atlantic, and then something that had existed in particular cultural contexts began spreading rapidly. People experimented with it. They changed how it was consumed. They turned it into products. And eventually, smoking became a global habit. Think about how strange this is. A plant that evolved in one part of the world became a product consumed across almost the entire planet. Human curiosity had become a global industry. But there was something else helping tobacco spread: the brain. Nicotine affects the brain's reward and attention systems. When nicotine enters the body, it interacts with receptors in the nervous system and can influence neurotransmitter release, including dopamine. And this matters because dopamine is involved in motivation and reward. The experience can become associated with certain situations: after a meal, during stress, while socializing, during a break. The brain begins connecting the substance with the situation. And eventually, the habit can become automatic. This is where experimentation ends, and dependence can begin. The person isn't necessarily thinking, "I want nicotine." Sometimes they're simply thinking, "I need a cigarette." That's the difference between curiosity and habit, and it helps explain how something that may have started as experimentation eventually became extremely difficult for many people to stop. For thousands of years, humans experimented with plants, but modern history added something ancient humans never had: mass production. Factories could produce enormous quantities. Advertising could convince millions of people that smoking was sophisticated, social, masculine, feminine, rebellious, relaxing, or even healthy. The cigarette wasn't just a plant anymore. It was a product, a brand, a social identity, and eventually a massive industry. The strange part is that the same human psychology that helped spread useful knowledge could also spread harmful habits. Humans are social animals. If everyone around you is doing something, your brain becomes less likely to question it. And smoking became deeply connected to social behavior. You didn't just smoke. You smoked with people. You smoked during conversations, during breaks, at parties, at work. The habit became part of everyday life. For a long time, the dangers of smoking weren't fully understood, but scientific evidence eventually made the picture much clearer. Smoking tobacco causes serious diseases and is a major cause of preventable death. And this creates one of the strangest stories in human history. Something that began with curiosity became ritual. Ritual became habit. Habit became industry. And industry eventually collided with science. Today, we understand far more about nicotine addiction and the health consequences of smoking than humans did centuries ago. But the original question remains fascinating. Why did someone do it in the first place? Maybe there wasn't one first smoker. Maybe there were thousands of experiments happening across different cultures and different periods. Humans repeatedly encountered plants, burned them, observed the smoke, and wondered what would happen if they inhaled it. Because that's what humans do. We experiment. We imitate. We remember. And sometimes, we turn an experiment into a tradition. So when you see someone smoking today, you're not just looking at a modern habit. You're looking at the end of an incredibly long human story. A story that began with fire, with curiosity, with plants, with ritual, and with one simple human question. What happens if I try this? That question has given us medicine, technology, food, culture, and sometimes habits we wish we had never discovered, because humans have always been curious. And perhaps that's the real story behind smoking. Not the cigarette, not the tobacco, not even the nicotine, but the ancient human instinct to experiment with the world around us. We changed the world, and sometimes the things we discovered changed us.